Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by Living Waters Abide Ministries. With host and founder, Richard Case, and co-host and retreat leader, Kathy Ricconi. Jesus reminds us to watch for the signs of his return. Today, we will explore further what we are seeing in our times that line up with what signs he said would indicate the potential of the end and his return. We will also discuss the practical meaning of this as we watch and as a remnant prepare as he so leads. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is End Times Friday, and this is part 2 with our good friends Eric and Ephraim from Israel, both in Jerusalem. This is interesting enough. We're taping this at the kind of the 1-year anniversary of the attack from Hamas in Gaza, and we talked last time about the high holidays, which is kind of significant. It was really, by the way, very beautiful that you describe the country and how they approach it. And what struck me, by the way, and I would maybe I can arrange to be there, but I would love to be at the Western Wall where there's 100,000 people singing, and I bet that just is overwhelming.
It is
To just realize it, and I think that's the beauty, quite frankly, of as I studied Israel, is that in America, there would be pockets of things like that, but Israel as a nation really has a certain unity about it that is kind of special because of your heritage and something that we admire. And I know that brings a lot of power to the country. We talked a little bit about our election coming up. And as America goes as leader of the free world, it really facilitates, what you're up to, and we continue to pray that we will support you. And I believe there's another season that you will be supported by America, because I think you need it. For you to become independent, which ultimately, we see in the end times that's what happens. You probably need more time to become independent. Do you have any comment on that, by the way? Because I know that there's some thoughts about you becoming more independent, given the variability of America. But any ideas about timing and what you're moving toward?
I punt to Ephraim. You take this one.
Oh, man. Well, I think that Israel's becoming more and more aware that we do need to be more independent. That's coming from a bad place because we're feeling so isolated internationally that, Britain has called to stop arms. Canada, who doesn't even supply us any arms, has declared that they won't supply us arms. Spain is condemned, like the whole world, even Western democracies are condemning us while we are being attacked on 7 different fronts by terrorist organizations and regimes that are determined to destroy us and are sending tens of thousands of missiles at us. And we just want to defend ourselves. And we're getting attacked and isolated. And don't get me started with the UN and all that. But it's, and then there's also, so basically our only friend is the United States, pretty much. And that's a tad shaky. We're not what's going to be in the future. We see signs that we do not like. There's been a lot of pushback on our trying to defend ourselves from the American government and trying to hold us back from doing what we feel is necessary to defend ourselves and to eliminate our terrorist enemies. And that worries us, and it's really existential. If we don't have arms or the finances to be able to defend ourselves, which the United States is key for, then we're in big trouble. So I think there's an awareness of that in the country and in the military echelons. I think there's going to be a lot of movement towards trying to make ourselves as independent as possible. not, easier said than done, because you have to remember that we are a tiny country with a tiny economy surrounded by enemies. So we're not the United States, and we're not, thousands and thousands of miles away from our enemies. So this is not a simple task. So for the immediate future, we definitely need the United States as a friend, but we're going to do as much as we possibly can to make ourselves as independent as possible.
Yeah, yeah. As we look at where you are today, we have three big questions for you. What's the status of the Gaza war, which we know had been prosecuted for a year now? What's the status of the war with Hezbollah, where you did these clever things to take out leadership, and then I know you've had ground activity there, and then Iran, sent the missiles. There has not been a big response yet. So what would we expect there? So those are kind of the three, and we'll start with Gaza. What's the status of that?
Okay, so I'll pick up on this. So let me point out sort of a distinction. When the United States had its conflicts in its forces in Iraq or Afghanistan to fight, those fights were thousands and thousands of miles away.
Yeah.
Okay. And at some point, the United States can say, okay, well, we're going to pack up, we're going to pull our troops back, and because we've reached our goals, or we've reached as many of the goals as we possibly could, and that's it. We don't have that luxury. The enemies that we're fighting are not thousands of miles away. They're 10 feet away.
Yeah.
They're right on our border, and they're not conventional enemies. They are largely, not all, but they're led by. Let me just say, they're led by the term I would use are jihadi fanatics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, whose ideology is so penetrated in their being that they believe the only way they can reach the next step of their goals is to annihilate Israel and all of its inhabitants. So that's what we're facing on all these different fronts. And in the case of Gaza, we totally evacuated the country in a very, very controversial decision made by a former Prime Minister, Arik Sharon, back in 2005, evacuated every single Jew, every single member of the IDF out of Gaza. By the way, there were farmers living in Gaza that had deeds to their property dating from the Ottoman Empire, and the government confiscated it, evacuated them against their will, and handed it over to, at that time, the Palestinian Authority. And then after 2 years of that, the Hamas took over violently the place, and started investing whatever money came into the country into building its terror infrastructure, of which we saw the result on October 7th. So most of us don't have the vision of Gaza ever being a good Garden of Eden. Okay, it's just never going to be that. Okay, it could have been a great. When we turned over them in 2005, they could have made it into a resort, attracting Europeans because the beaches are gorgeous. But they chose a different path. They chose their own path. Okay, and it wasn't that. So rather than building a country, these jihadi fanatics are not interested in building countries. They're interested in destroying those that exist.
Yeah.
Okay, and restoring some vision they have of the 7th century caliphate that extends from, the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific. Okay, and at this point in time, nothing's going to change them. And even if we succeed in eliminating the leadership of Hamas, what remains of it in Gaza consists of Yahya Sinwar and his brother. Most everybody else has been eliminated with some minor exceptions. If it doesn't come back as Hamas, it could come back as called something else, ISIS, who knows what, okay? Because these teachings go on.
Yeah.
And the younger generations are taught this horrendous philosophy of conquest. What's ironic is all the American students on the campuses of the United States are claiming that Israel's a colonial power, but it's these jihadi fanatics that are the ones who are out trying to colonize the world, the ones that they're defending in New York and elsewhere. In any case, coming back to the subject. So right now, what we have is a situation in Gaza where there's, I think, one, maybe two divisions of the Israeli army deployed. They engage actively in combat when it's necessary, when they see Hamas congregating and reconstituting itself, and that will continue for some time to come. I don't foresee a scenario where that changes. For even if some other entity were to take over managing Gaza, they'll do their best to reconstitute themselves to conduct the jihadi image or vision that they have in mind. So I think most Israelis sort of view that this is our fate, and this is just what's going to be going on for many more years to come. Today, when we uncover intelligence that there's a terrorist group doing something or about to do something in what we call Judea and Samaria, what's often called around the world the West Bank, our troops go in and they find stuff, and then they capture the terrorists, and then the plot is foiled. And once in a while, for every 9 or 10 that we find, 1 or 2 gets out, and there's a terrorist attack. The result, just today, there was a terror attack, and a policeman was killed. Okay, and by the way, the policeman was killed, but the person who neutralized the terrorist was a civilian carrying a gun. Okay. So I don't think any of us foresee a future in Gaza where that's different. Okay, regardless of who leads it. There's
How
not
about
much
the hostages? How about the hostages, Eric? That part of it.
The hostages are tough. Now, this is my own opinion. This is not, I think, a general Israeli opinion. It's just my own, because I think about how Yahya Sinwar must be thinking, because that's going to determine the future of the hostages, because he's got them. Okay, he has no interest in releasing them now, next year, or in 5 years, because the minute he does that, he knows he's a dead man. And his vision, this guy has spent his life, okay, his family's lives been killed in various attacks on the vision of building country of a terrorist army. And he's got it in Gaza. And he's not going to be able to go. Where's he going to go? So Israel has actually offered him, you leave us the hostages, you and your family and your senior commanders can all leave in peace. Okay? Where's he going to go? French Riviera? He's going to go to Turkey? Is he going to go? Where's he going to go that he can build this dream of his, which is an army of terrorists to take over the world? His vision and the vision of the Islamic Brotherhood. I mean, Israel, as they say, we're the small Satan. Their vision does not stop with killing the Jews.
Right.
We're just the first step in a very long process of theirs to restore the 7th century caliphate globally, not just even in the Middle East, globally. That's how they think. And that's their vision of the world, and that's the vision of the future. And nothing we're going to do, well, I don't think there's a lot we can do to change that, because it just pops, it's like smack-a-mole. You put it down in one place, it pops up someplace else. So I don't see, it may sound depressing to some of your listeners, but we don't, this is our fate. This is how we go on. And Israel's been in a continual war since 1929, not even since 1948. I think it was 29 or 27, Ephraim?
21.
21, excuse me.
Which was 27 years before the establishment of the State of Israel.
Yeah. In 1921, there's been a settlement of Jews living in the holy city of Hebron, where the patriarchs are buried. Abraham bought that plot, and that's where he and the sons are buried, and his grandson. And Jews have been living there for millennia. And in 1921, the Arabs attacked and slaughtered many of the Jews living there that were totally defenseless. I was dating an Israeli girl who Her parents came from Hebron. So that's when this whole started. And since then, we've been fighting for our independence. And it continues. And I don't see it ending anytime soon. In the North, it's different. I think our goals are more manageable and achievable. There's an existing UN Security Council resolution called 1701 that was passed in 2006 in the aftermath of what we call the Second Lebanese War. And in it, the Hezbollah's forces are supposed to withdraw to the Litani River, which is about 30 kilometers north of the Israeli. It's not really a border. It's called the Blue Line. It's the armistice line from 1948 between Lebanon and Israel. Okay, and so all Israel is demanding, and it will demand as its forces continue fighting there, that the UN and Hezbollah live up to that resolution and withdraw their forces. Okay, Hezbollah can still attack us. They can still send missiles at us, but from that distance, their rockets can't reach us that easily, and their drones are easily to detect, and we can set up proper defenses to deal with it if they pull back to that demarcation line. Okay,
and it prevents them from doing an October 7th type of cross-border attack, which they were planning.
Yep.
So there, I think our goals are much more achievable, and we should, in theory, have more international support for achieving it. It remains to be seen, of course, because Hezbollah. I look at it from our view. For 12 months, Hezbollah has been firing rockets across the border, hitting our communities in Israel. No one in the world has said, we demand a ceasefire. None of the Europeans, United States has said along the way, but none of the Europeans, and certainly not the UN, and none of the other countries. No one's cared. All of a sudden, the IDF starts battling back and advancing. And now all of a sudden, we need a ceasefire. We need to demand a ceasefire. Okay.
If I can just add to that also, that when that resolution to demilitarize that there should be no terrorists or weapons or missiles in that demilitarized zone south of the Litani River, which was a UN resolution, the UN put in peacekeepers called UNIFIL in that whole area, supposedly to prevent them moving in. In the meantime, over the last 20 years, they've watched as Hezbollah moved in 150,000 missiles under their nose, meters away from all their bases. Many of the attacks in recent months have come from right beside these UN bases that are supposedly there to prevent it. They've done nothing to stop it. And the only thing that they have accomplished is when Israel is trying to defend itself and take out all these missiles, the UN is now refusing to move their people out, and then Israel, sometimes by accident, has injured or caused damage or even killed some of these UN soldiers, and now they're up in arms that Israel cannot defend itself. So the UN is in there doing nothing according to their purpose of being there to prevent the demilitarization, and they are doing something to prevent us from defending ourselves.
Yeah. What's the prediction right now on how long it will take to move past that line?
I don't think I really know, because I can't tell yet. I actually have a nephew who's serving as a lone soldier at this moment, is in Lebanon. Okay, he came out, he was out on a 2-day leave because he had been in Lebanon. Now he's back in. And I couldn't even learn from him exactly, because he really doesn't understand what the strategy is going to be unrolling there. When you look at the territory that the IDF troops are operating in, it's a very, very small fraction of the area. I'm talking about ground troops of southern Lebanon. There are missiles being fired by the IDF from drones or from fighter jets that are striking villages throughout the entire southern Lebanon area. But in terms of where the troops are actually operating, it's it can't be more than like about 15 square kilometers. I don't know what square miles is, but yeah, it can't be more than that. It's a very small area, and I don't know yet whether they're just staging this in stages and plan on moving throughout most of southern Lebanon, or whether they plan on doing this and then pulling back. I don't think Outside of the IDF itself, I'm not, and maybe the government, I'm not sure anyone really knows what's going to happen there.
Is there
Eric?
is there a resolve by the government to keep prosecuting the war until that happens?
I think there's a determination by the government and the people, okay, in this country to prosecute the war in the North until we're able to return the 80,000 refugees that were evacuated from that area and displaced out of their homes, living in other places around the country, back to their homes. And that means, and the only way that happens is by Hezbollah being north of the Litani River.
Yeah.
And either there is going to be a diplomatic solution sooner where they agree to do it, which I doubt. Ultimately, it's my opinion, I'm not sure how much is shared by other people, that it's going to rely on the IDF pushing them out.
And we don't have a lot of confidence in diplomatic solutions based on our past experience. Diplomatic solutions usually are, like Eric mentioned, as soon as Israel starts defending itself and just barely starts winning, the international community starts screaming that a ceasefire and a diplomatic resolution is required. And our enemies have no interest in fulfilling their side of the bargain. They just take advantage of it to move the terrorists in and move missiles in, and they might wait a few years, and then they're prepared better to attack us. I do also want to mention that they've just the Hezbollah in Lebanon, aside from forcing close to 100,000 people out of their homes, these people have lost their businesses. They've lost their sources of income. Their children have not had places to go to school. They're completely disrupted. And Hezbollah has shot, as I said, tens of thousands of missiles at civilians and have destroyed the whole north of the community. Like the buildings and the infrastructure that is up there is a complete wasteland. And then we get, countries around the world saying, hold back, be patient, try to get a diplomatic solution, just absorb another 10,000 missiles and have, just wait another couple of years with 100,000 people out of their community. Like, what do people want from us?
Right.
That's what I usually, when people are objecting to Israel's actions, I just put it right back. What would you have us do?
Yeah.
What would America do if they got
we wouldn't
one?
we would be attacking immediately. So
Yeah, what would any country do? What would you have us do to protect our civilians and our cities from unprovoked attack?
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be a while. So it's nothing imminent. It's going to take a while. Sounds like.
Yeah.
Then you asked us about the third leg, Iran.
Yep.
Okay. So everyone's expecting the IDF to launch an attack on Iran. I'll use the word imminently. I don't know what that means quite yet. There have been discussions going on between the Biden administration and the government, and on objectives and so on, and how to handle any kind of retaliatory attack from Iran. And I'm both encouraged and disappointed. It's great to engage the United States, get their input, their advice. But when you read about what our government tells them in the Washington Post the next day, it just pisses me off. These things are being intentionally leaked by members of the Biden administration to sabotage our efforts. As I said in my post last night, why don't we just give them the longitude and latitude of where we're going to strike and the time of the day we're going to strike, so the Iranians are prepared. This is. I don't know if this is President Biden or it's his staff, but it is really not the way to conduct discussions with an ally, and have them be put in the Washington Post or the New York Times the next day, because we know those newspapers will do whatever the government tells them to leak to the public. That's what they'll do. So Iran. So there are three types of structures you can think of in Iran. Maybe there are more. One is the nuclear facilities, which are spread out through at least 25 different geographical locations, some of which are buried more than 80 meters below the earth in concrete bunkers. Then you have the energy facilities. We all know Iran's a very big oil producer and exporter. And believe it or not, roughly 70% of their oil is exported through this one island called Karg Island in the Arabian Sea, in the northern part of Iran, up near Kuwait. Okay, and if anyone were to destroy the facilities on the island, which would not be all that hard, it would destroy the 70% of the oil output of Iran. That's the good news. I mean, it wouldn't be hard for the IDF to take that out. The bad news, if the IDF does that, what it does to the oil prices, okay, in the world.
Right.
Okay, and now Saudi Arabia, in theory, whether it's willing to or not, I don't know, could pick up the slack because they have the producing capacity and the shipping capacity to make all that up. However, there's another gotcha. It turns out that the oil that gets produced out of that area goes through the Gulf of, the Straits of,
Hormuz.
depending on your Persian, the Persian Straits or the I forget what else it's called.
Hormuz.
And the Hormuz Straits, and half of those are bordering Iran. So if Iran were to either put mines or floating mines or put in ships to ram tankers like they're letting the Houthis do, it could disrupt oil shipments and really disrupt the flow of energy around the world. And that has a lot of implications that extend, of course, way beyond Israel's borders and can tend to make even people who support us not support us, what we do. So there are a lot of good reasons that it doesn't make sense to strike those facilities. So that leaves kind of the military facilities.
Yeah.
Now, it's my view, and I think this is something that the Prime Minister also shared. Actually, he produced a video. I linked it to it from my podcast not long ago, where he actually put out a public message in English that was translated into Farsi and broadcast with the intent of the Persian people listening to, where he was basically saying, our argument is not against you, the Persian people. You're a proud, ancient people, and there's no reason why our ancient people and your ancient people can't be friends once again. Our issue is with the tyrannical regime, which you hate and which we hate, okay? So it's his view, and I share this view, that the right strategy is for us to do what we can to bring down this regime. Our strategy should be regime change, okay? And not hide it or not talk about it. We probably on ourselves cannot make that happen, nor can we do enough damage or change enough to enable the Persian people to take back their country once again. It's going to require a lot more international support and international actions. But in my opinion, Israel should do its share, and we should take out military facilities. But that's my opinion. I have no access to the defense, echelon of the country, nor the government. But that's just sort of when I look at the situation and analyze all the pluses and minuses. Of course, taking out the nuclear facilities would probably be the best thing. But A, there's no way Israel could do it by itself. And B, it's not clear how much damage we could do. We can't take it out. We can do enough damage to maybe postpone it. But it's not clear by how many months or years damage we could do to do that.
Yep.
So I just don't know enough.
Ephraim, how is the populace thinking right now in terms of are they expecting your government to do something? And when you say imminent, we know that could be days, weeks, a month. But is that what they're waiting for?
Yeah, everyone is anxiously waiting for it. We see it as a real key to a breakthrough. People want this to happen because Iran is behind everything. Iran is behind Hezbollah. Iran is behind Hamas. They supply them the weapons, the intelligence, the finances. So doing a very significant blow to Iran will severely weaken all these jihadi terrorists that are trying to destroy us. And one of the big reasons why Israel held back from attacking was, number one, we were busy in Gaza fighting Hamas, which was like an immediate danger, and our hostages, but also Hezbollah. Anything we might have done against Iran would have brought tens of thousands of more missiles on all our major cities everywhere across the country, and that could have cost thousands of people's lives. So the fact that we have now succeeded in, to a certain degree, weakening Hezbollah over the last couple of months, with the pagers thing and eliminating a lot of their leadership, has put them in a much weaker situation. So when we do now attack Iran, I'm sure there will be a reaction from Hezbollah in Lebanon, but it won't be as existentially threatening as it was before.
Yep.
You have to understand one thing, that the Home Front Command, which is sort of the Homeland Security agency here in Israel, they prepared this country and the population for expecting that during a war with Hezbollah, we would lose our water system, or we would lose our power system, we would lose our Wi-Fi, our cellular networks. We would, any one or more of those systems would be destroyed and have to be rebuilt, estimating would take 2 or 3 days. So people here, under guidance from the Home Front Command, were stocking up on water. People were buying batteries for their radios so they could listen to the radio to find out what's going on. People were buying, my wife's son bought a set of solar panels so we could charge our mobile phones and stuff, so we could at least track what was going on one way or another, or communicate with somebody. I don't know exactly. And so far, thank God, none of that has happened yet. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean it can't happen. I mean, our defense minister came out yesterday and said that they believe they destroyed 1/3 of the arsenal of Hezbollah that it had before the start of the conflict. He knows more than me, but somehow I don't share his confidence. Maybe it's just my personality.
It also leaves another 100,000 missiles. It's not like
no.
Like our
he said they only have a third left. So
okay, so only 50,000.
But I don't know how they know that, and they know more than me, of course.
Yep. Well, thank you both for sharing the update. We're going to be, keep supporting you. We're hoping that our election winds up with somebody that does support Israel and funds you, because we know that your economy needs some assistance, and you need money to do what you got to do. As believers, we know that the Bible says you will be protected. So we're confident it's going to happen. We just are hoping that the right things happen quickly. So thank you for sharing that. We'll for our audience, we're going to pick this up again next month, and lots were happening. And maybe if something does happen, maybe we'll try to get on earlier, because it's so helpful to us. Like you say, the news we get isn't very accurate, and we're really helpful. You're very helpful, and we're benefited by the fact that you do that. And Denny, thanks for facilitating this and your thoughts as well. So we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. And to our listeners, just a reminder, especially if you just have a heart to be an intercessor, to be praying for our brothers and sisters in Israel. Such a time to be surrounding them in prayer and supporting them and loving them well. And so that is a gift and a responsibility of ours as believers as well. So we do lift you guys in prayer, and thanks for sharing with us. If you have questions from today's broadcast, be sure to send them in to us at questions@abideministries.com. And we would look forward to seeing you next time.
Yep. We'll be praying for your safety, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by Living Waters Abide Ministries. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.